Last night was June 17th, 2023, and I was blessed to be able to go and see Depeche Mode performing at Twickenham as part of their Memento Mori World Tour. I am buzzing. Let's talk all about that show. A very warm welcome to you, my friend, wherever you may be in the world. It's early morning here in the UK. Well, not that early. I had a bit of a sleep in this morning, and I'm absolutely buzzing following last night's performance at Twickenham. A lot of you have already been to see them already. They've just come to Europe now. Now they're in England. And as we know, Depeche Mode, when they tour, they don't do it in halves. This band has always been very well known for touring, and even at a time when, you know, through communist times and times when there were certain countries that you would not tour in, Depeche Mode always understood the importance of touring, hence their fan base. And there's a lot I'm going to say in this video. I want to just start off with a few shout outs and thank yous, and then we're going to run through the show and I'll let you know my feelings in detail. First things first, a huge thank you to Kevin Carr and his lovely wife Lisa. Kevin is one of my students but has become a friend over the years, and he facilitated and organized everything last night. So Kevin, thank you so much. This included access to the VIP area and this goodie bag, which I've not even opened. I thought I would open it for this video. It was a blast. Great food, free drinks, absolutely loved it. And this seems, oh look, that's a bandana. And I'd be interested to see what, if you were in the VIP sections at one of the other shows in one of the other countries, I'd be interested to see what you got. Also got this VIP lounge. I think we'll wear that for the duration of this video. There we go. What else we got here? Oh, this little box. Just unbox this. Oh, it's great. There we go. It's a deck of, looks like a deck of playing, looks like a pack of cigarettes, but it's probably a deck of playing cards and a die, a set of dice. Nice, love it. There is one more thing here. What? Some kind of, okay, it's a little funky cover. Oh, it's just, postcards. There we go. And there, of course, the Memento Mori. I must say, I do think that the artwork, the album cover, everything about this album, it's certainly the best in years. What is this? I'm assuming this is a poster of some sort. Oh, here we go. It's rolled up. It does look like a poster. Oh yeah, there we go. Lovely. So thank you very much to the organizers, and thank you very much once again, Kevin. Thank you, brother, for this wonderful experience that I'm really, really grateful to you. So I've been to many Depeche Mode shows over the years, my very first one being in 1994 when I went to watch the Devotional tour in South Africa, and that was actually, I guess, the Exotic tour. But that was my first show, and that was a long time ago, and Depeche Mode have always put on amazing live shows. This band has always been known as a touring band, and very often a lot of their live performances will outdo some of the studio recordings, and that is not always an easy thing to do, especially for bands that are this electronic and this produced. They always manage to pull off a great live show. The presentation, the performance, the vocals were absolutely amazing. Dave and Martin were just absolutely on top form. Christian's drumming, which I've been a little bit critical about before, it was absolutely on point. I don't know if they're using different processing. I know they used to use Ableton and things like that. I don't want to go into gig talk, but whatever they're doing now, it just sounds so much better. There seems to be some kind of underpinning of the drums, meaning like there might be some kind of triggers on that, just to give it more oomph. My criticism, especially round about the Spirit tour, was, I felt that Christian was over drumming it. Check out my rant video when I spoke about Spirits of the Forest. And also, I thought there were some cracks that were starting to show. However, I'm being blown away by this last leg of this performance, and my expectations were high for this show, and they certainly did not disappoint. So I'm going to run through the set list now. This was a long show and a very, very good set list. I know there are always mixed opinions on set lists, and as I've said many, many times, it's very difficult when you've been on the scene for 40 years and you've got 15 albums under your belt and you want to present new music, but you also want to keep the fans happy. Within that as well, you've also always got to play. There are certain songs that are non-negotiables. Songs like, Enjoy the Silence, Personal Jesus, Never Let Me Down, Again Stripped. There are songs that always have to be played. And I'm sure some of you will disagree with that. But I think the set list was fantastic. And I wanted to do this review while it's still fresh in my mind. So they came on, with the sun still shining. And I do love the intro. Boom, 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 boom. Very similar to the intro to the last tour, which was the Spirit Tour, where you had the two legs. So they have this they've always had this kind of slow entry, and this kind of started back, if we take it back to sort of Songs of Faith and Devotion, when they came on with Higher Love. Instead of coming on with something fast, I think in recent years that always usually come on with something slower. So coming on with a slower song does sort of, it kind of emphasizes the epicness of it. Instead of walking onto something going boom, boom, dum, 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 it's usually this starts with a lot of ambient, discordant synth tones, and I mean you get the goose flesh, because it's just, you just feel the scale. And once again, I can't remember being at a show this big. Forgive me for segueing into this. I don't want to make this about me, but when I was recruited by Mesh, and I just played a couple of festival shows in Germany, especially when I played Plague Noir. I've personally never played a show that size, and it was, it freaked me out a bit, but it was wonderful. The reason I'm telling you that is because if you're a musician and a performer, you obviously understand the fundamentals behind performance. So with that knowledge, me going into this and just looking at the sheer scale of this, the amount of people, the size of the stage, the logistics behind that, I believe it was 10 trucks, that the whole set goes into. It's mind-boggling. I'm sure it will be impressive for you, even if you're not a musician. But if you are a musician that gigs and stuff, just knowing what is involved in live shows and then seeing it on this scale, it is absolutely mind-boggling. So as always, it starts off with a bit of discordant sort of synth sounds, and they come walking on, and the intro track is basically, it's the outro from the song Speak to Me. Really sort of slow, and it's very slow and epic, and as they walk on, you get all the people clapping. It just has this really brutal kind of Colosseum vibe to it. I've said before, I'm not generally a fan of huge outdoor shows. I prefer indoor venues of between, let's say, 800 and 4,000. That's, to me, is a good size. When you see shows in venues this size, you tend to lose a lot of sound because of the laws of physics and everything, open air and things like that, and the scale, and also you're so far away from the stage. But all things considered, last night's performance was a textbook example of, if you're going to do an outdoor stadium show, this is how you do it, and I am absolutely buzzing. After the pre-show music, they walk on, and you have Martin, Christian, Peter, and then Dave sort of comes on afterwards, and they go straight into My Cosmos Is Mine. I will go into a bit of detail later on in this video as to which songs I felt translated well. Some translated better than others. Some were a little bit, I won't say disappointing, it's just because the standard was so high. Some songs came across a lot better than others, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Track 2, Wagging Tongue, that comes in really, really well. It's got a really sort of like eyes wide open kind of feel. When Wagging Tongue starts, then you feel the show has actually started, because My Cosmos Is Mine, it's very sort of boomy and drony, and it's a little bit of a what the fuck kind of song, although I do like it. It's just really weird and strange. But by the time Wagging Tongue starts, that kind of, that is kind of like the beginning of the show. It's then straight into Walking in My Shoes. Do 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 do. Very similar arrangements to what they've been doing for, probably the last 15 years, but there have been a few changes, and hey man, if it's not broken, don't fix it. But there were changes in the sounds and on the backing tracks and stuff, and although there was a strong familiarity to it, it worked. Track 4, It's No Good. Now that's a Mode favorite from the Ultra album. Haven't heard that in a long time and really enjoyed it. Track 5, Sister of Night, we've not heard that one in years from the Ultra album. In fact, I've never heard that performed live. It went down really well. When Sister of Night came on, I was paying attention to the audience, and it was kind of like a relief part of the show. And what I mean by that is, it's like when you're watching an action film or a horror movie, you know, you're tense, and then you get to the daytime scenes and you can kind of relax, if that makes any sense. This song was that kind of emotion. I noticed when this song came on, people sort of sat down. Those that were standing sort of sat down. Some people sort of went off to the toilet and to the bar. So it was almost like a chill. It's chill out time type of song. Anyway, they lifted again on track 6, In Your Room, and this time it's not the version from the album. It is the Zephyr mix, which was obviously, you know, from the single version. That went down very, very well. That particular version, I just remember the music video with the light bulb in front of their faces. It's certainly not as sort of heavy and epic as the version on the album, you know, on the Songs of Faith and Devotion album. But you know, it is the single version, and it translated very, very well. Track 7, Everything Counts. I mean, this has always been one of their most epic songs. It was indeed a highlight of the show. Very similar backing track, probably the same one that they used on the last show, but it worked really, really well. Just that sort of like sequence of running, bum 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 bum, and then this song came across incredibly well, and it's, you know, the pacing of the show was very good, because if you look at, you know, how we went into Sister of Night, it kind of slowed. In Your Room picked it up, and then we get to Everything Counts, and it's like is everybody paying attention? The song went down incredibly, incredibly well. It follows on track 8, Precious. Once again, a fan favorite, that from the Playing the Angel album. It's never been one of my biggest, one of my favorite Depeche Mode songs, but I've always had a special place in my heart. I want to do a video where I actually demonstrate how Precious and Enjoy the Silence are very, very similar. I really, when Precious came out the first time, it was evident to me that they were following the formula of Enjoy the Silence, just if you look at the structure, sort of guitar melody and then that break after the first chorus. I'll make a video on that at some point. But Precious, nevertheless, a great song and a fan favorite. We then go on to track 9, My Favorite Stranger. This obviously a song from the new Memento Mori album. What I liked about this is that this actual track had the original sort of drum sound from the original album. And what I mean by that is, my criticism to some of Christian's drumming has always been, I sometimes feel that he overdrums. It's like, but I get that it's a live performance. But then again, I'm a bit of a synth nerd, so I'm always like, it's not about the expression. It's about being respectful to the song. But then again, I understand the whole sort of rock and roll sentiment and wanting to do a great performance. I also just have to say, I've always, with any sort of criticisms or comments I've had on the drumming, I've always said that I think Christian is an amazing drummer. He is. I just sometimes felt that some of the drumming was inappropriate, in my opinion. However, I must say, last night I bowed down to Christian. It was just like, oh my God, everything was on point. And some of the comments I made were, I always felt that, okay, you're drumming on every song. You don't need to necessarily drum on every song. Some songs can have electronic drums, kind of like what they did in the the devotional tour. Alan was playing drums on certain songs, and then other songs he went off and played keyboards. You don't always need live drumming. So this is where they got the balance right. Excuse me. On the song, you get the actual electronic drums from the album, and the kicks and stuff. And Christian comes in eventually, but just sort of playing snares and slight kind of just slight percussive stuff. It was difficult to see exactly what he was doing because this is a huge stadium, and although I was not that far away, he was quite far away. I guess what I'm trying to say is that particular song, My Favorite Stranger, it does have a very sort of drum machine type sound, and indeed it does on the record. So it needs that. That is an integral part of the song. So even when you're playing it live, I feel you need to respect that, and they did. So instead of him playing the actual groove on the drum set, they had the drum machine part from the album, and then Christian just kind of accentuated it by sort of playing along, but I don't think he used his kick and stuff like that. So that to me was very, very good, because I think if they had played the acoustic drum set, now Christian's drum set is acoustic, and I saw in a video once with Kerry Hopwood, he said one of the benefits of using an acoustic set is, it's more dynamic. Sometimes the dynamic drum kit sound is not what is called for in this kind of music, but I don't want to segue into that. They've got it absolutely right. And just on this particular song, I once again want to emphasize that using the actual drum machine backing track and then just doing slight sort of fill-ins and everything, manually on the drum kit, gave the song the authentic feel. Because if they'd used the drum kit, just the drum kit for this, I don't think it would have sounded true to the record. So I was very impressed and I really enjoyed it. So after 9 songs, it's now time for Dave to go off the stage and have a breather. And the boy with a golden voice, Martin, takes center stage. And it's A Question of Lust. Now, it was so nice to hear A Question of Lust in its full album form. I've personally never heard it being performed like this live. I've heard him do it sort of acoustically, but I loved that they did it in the sort of traditional album form, and it went across really, really well. A Question of Lust is my favorite Martin Gore song of all times, as you know. And, I think in a lot of recent shows, or recent and far back shows, Martin does the song Home, and once again, some of you went, I would have loved to have seen Home. He does Home a lot. I was personally happy to hear Question of Lust because it is my favorite Martin Gore song. But once again, with a catalogue this size, how do you choose? And although this set list has its basic structure, there have been a few surprises and songs added and taken away throughout the various different shows. And those of you who have the privilege of going to different shows, who can afford it, and are following them on tour, I'm sure you guys are getting the most value out of that. Track 12, Dave comes back on again, and we hear one of the feature tracks from the new Memento Mori album, which is Ghosts Again. I'll get into it a bit later. Ghosts Again, great song. It doesn't really come across that well live, and what I mean by that is it doesn't come across badly. It just doesn't seem to have as much impact as what you would expect it to. And bearing in mind that the impact of these shows are massive, it's we're talking at a 10 out of 10 level, sort of like on every song. So when a song doesn't quite get there, it doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's not quite 9 or 10 out of 10. But the standard is very, very high. Track 13, I Feel You. Getting really rocky again. This, of course, is the part where they're lifting it again. Track 14, sing it with me. Do 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 do. Peter Gordino having his moment on the bass there. This song starts off very, very energetically because it has a real sort of open sound with a sort of kick, snare, and the dynamic bass line. Do, 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 do. I've often said that I like A Pain That I'm Used To. I prefer the album version. This live version, which is the Jacques Leconte remix version, which they've been doing for the last several tours, I'm not very big on it. However, I think from a live perspective, it works very, very well, and I can see why they do it. It has its place, and it's been on the set list for many years. We then get on to something that was personally quite emotional for me and for a lot of other people, was Wild in My Eyes, with Fletcher's face appearing on the screen. I found that quite emotional. It's just very surreal, because you're watching this and you just kind of expect that he's there, and he wasn't there. But I just think this was a lovely shout out to Fletcher. Of course, Wild in My Eyes was one of Fletcher's favorite songs, if not his favorite song. So I just loved seeing that. And of course, Dave made a great shout out to Fletcher at the end, which was really great. Track 16, Wrong. And I was wrong about Wrong. And what I mean is, it's never been a song that, okay, I've never disliked it, but it wasn't, to me, it was never one of those songs that, because some people love it, and I was always like, yeah, it's all right. But seeing it the way it was performed last night, it really had impact. It was very, very dynamic and very, very powerful, and it menacing, and it kicked ass. Just the way it starts off with that sequence, do 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 do. It really, really gave me a new perspective on it. Track 17, a song which is on pretty much every live show, Stripped, obviously a fan favorite. Although it came across well, it just lacked a little bit of impact. I've said this before, that for the last few shows they've transposed the key of the song. Once again, artists often do that. They transpose keys of songs, you know, sing it in a lower key just to make it easier to sing. I don't know why they do that with Stripped, because Stripped is not sung in a very, very high register. And by Let Me See You Stripped, I really don't know why they transpose it, because there are other songs where Dave clearly can hit the notes. So I don't know what the reason is of transposing it. There must be a reason. And the reason is probably not due to vocal key, because once again, there are other songs that Dave clearly sings higher. He can clearly reach the pitch. So I don't know why they transpose it. Transposing it the semitone lower, although it's only a semitone, it does take a lot of the energy and lift away from the song. And in fact, I might do a dedicated video on that one time. Once again, I'm not hating on it. Once again, I'm just saying it's because everything is on such a high standard here. When something kind of falls below 8 out of 10, you notice it. Track 18, John the Revelator. This is a song that Dave clearly likes performing live. He's performed it live on his Soul Savers performances as well. John the Revelator. Sorry. He really goes for that, and you can see he really loves it. Once again, this song, it didn't have as much impact as what I thought. Certainly not as much as I've heard it before, and that wasn't performance-wise or vocally. It was just sort of sound-wise. It just didn't have as much impact as some of the other songs. Once again, it's just because everything was at such a high standard. That is why. Track 19, fan favorite, and indeed the song that got me into this band and changed my life forever, was Enjoy the Silence. This was an epic moment, and one of the best live versions I've heard. It was just loud, it was dynamic, it was emotional, it was absolutely brilliant. I can't really say more than that. That was 10 out of 10, that song. Encore, the band walk off, but we know what's coming. And they came back on, and Martin and Dave walked onto the riser in the middle of the crowd, and they sang, which was one of the most outstanding versions of Waiting for the Night. Wow, it was absolutely brilliant. Track 21, you knew it was coming, Just Can't Get Enough. Obviously, this is very tongue-in-cheek. This is the band kind of going, okay, we're going to do this. But what I love about the fact that they do it is that they're not taking themselves so seriously. By playing a song like Just Can't Get Enough, it really shows that they are really respecting the fan base and going, hey man, yeah, it's cheesy, but this is part of our catalogue, and it is a great song. Although it's been played to death, let's face it, it is a great song. Track 22, Never Let Me Down Again. Obviously a fan favorite, always comes across incredibly well, incredibly anthemic and powerful. What's to say? And they finished it off with the epic high, which is Personal Jesus. So there you have it. 23 songs of an epic show. 10 out of 10 performance. I mean, this was absolutely fantastic. I just want to now speak about a few songs which I felt, I won't say they failed to hit the mark. That's not what I'm saying. It's just because, once again, the standard is so high. Certain songs I just want to comment on. Now, My Cosmos Is Mine. I was talking to some of the fans as I was walking back to the station afterwards. We were like stuck in a stampede, so I had a lot of time to talk to some of the fans. And I think from what I've heard, through recent shows and stuff, My Cosmos Is Mine, it's really it's an experimental track, and it is very much an album track, but it doesn't necessarily translate that well live. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't sound good live. It's just that when they come on, it's very kind of very boomy and muddy, and it's meant to be like that. I just don't think it translates that well live. Now, some of you are hearing it's bad. That's not what I'm saying. Is, remember, they're in a very, very high standard. It is a good way to start the show. It's just because the song is very odd and experimental. The show does start with Wagging Tongue. That's when people's lights kind of go on, So, yeah, Cosmos Is Mine is not a bad song, but it doesn't translate as well as some of the other songs, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I also said earlier that Ghosts Again, although I love the song, it just doesn't come across live as powerfully as what you'd think it would. Now, there are many, many reasons for that. Now, the way the band were performing it, no complaints at all. It was, I think they were on top of their game last night. But it's just that due to a lot of mitigating factors, the laws of physics and considering outdoor sound and things like that, for whatever reason, which I'm not going to go into now, some of the songs just didn't come across as energetically as I thought. And Ghosts Again definitely was one of those. The song I Feel You as well was not as energetic this time as what I've seen it before. It just didn't seem to get to the mark that I've seen it reach before. Once again, it wasn't bad. It's just that it just wasn't at the 10 out of 10 that I've seen it before. John the Revelator as well, usually a song which is very, very powerful. It just didn't have the sort of impact that I've remembered having on previous shows. And that's it, really. I mean, these are not criticisms, these are just comments. And remember, it's because I'm rating this on a kind of a 9 and a 10 out of 10 standard. So, but as far as a whole performance goes, no complaints, really. And the songs that really kind of stood out as like, wow, like really, really stood out. Obviously, I would say Everything Counts. We've heard it so many times, but the combination of the way it's programmed and alongside with the subject matter, the nostalgia, and too many things that I can go into here, it came across really, really well, and it absolutely kicked ass. Question of Lust as well, to me, was a huge highlight, and it really stood out as one of the best live renditions Martin's done in a long time. Other huge highlights were Enjoy the Silence, Never Let Me Down Again, and Personal Jesus was pretty immense as well. A 10 out of 10 performance, or if you're going to rate it out of stars, a 5-star performance. Absolutely enjoyed this, and I'm sure a lot of you did as well. I was absolutely amazed by, as I say, the set design, the energy, the scale of this just blew my mind. This is a night to remember, and I wanted to make this review as early as possible this morning, just so that it was still fresh in my mind. Although I will not forget this for many years to come, I can assure you. Once again, speaking to fans on the way home yesterday, I was speaking to a gentleman. Shout out to you, Glenn, if you're watching. Glenn had said he'd seen something like 140 Depeche Mode shows in his time, so obviously a super fan. And he's obviously been following them around on this particular tour. Glenn did go on to say that this particular show to him was an absolute highlight. This was the London show. This was like the homecoming show. And Dave, Martin, they're humans. And so obviously, you have good shows and you have shows that are better. And just what I heard from fans regarding last night's performance is that Dave and Martin were just top of their game. I just want to say, Dave rocking that kind of sort of slightly Italian mafia boss look. Martin looking fantastic, trim and toned with these blonde Mohican hair. Absolutely fantastic. Great performance, great energy. The vocals are something that I keep coming back to. Such power and raw energy. Dave has always been a really raw and direct performer. Martin, on the other hand, has got a more sort of gentle, angelic voice, and the combination of the two voices work well together. But Martin, so far as pitching is concerned, I can't recall a time where I've ever heard him just veer slightly off pitch. He is absolutely amazing, and any engineer who's worked with Martin, the studio will tell you that the guy's got what many have said, or some have said, is perfect pitch. As I've had the privilege of listening to some of the multi-tracks in isolation, just listening to Martin's voice in isolation without anything played in the background, he does have perfect pitch, and listening to his vocals in older records before auto-tune and pitch correction existed, he's absolutely amazing. But there's not much more I can say about this before I turn into a fanboy. As you know, I probably am, but I really, really enjoyed this. And as you know, I'm never afraid to speak my mind. I've been very critical where I felt it was warranted. But then again, often when I'm critical about this band, it's only because this is a 10 out of 10 band to me, you know what I mean? So I hold them to a much higher standard than I hold most other bands to. But if you've not been to this, you are missing out. This is a band, an institution at the height of their, they really are in their prime now, and some might argue they're not as good as they used to be. I disagree with all mitigating factors. The guys are in their 60s now, and I think they would rival a lot of bands that are in their 20s. Obviously, they've got the experience, they've got the resources to put on a great show. But the bottom line, what a show, what a production, what a performance. Absolutely, I'm buzzing. I'm also pleased to say that the crowdfunder for the Brian Griffin Depeche Mode photography book, which I've been involved in, we have not only reached our goal, we have surpassed it. So thank you very much to those of you who have pledged. And the books will now go into production and we will get them out to you as soon as possible. For those of you who've not managed to pledge, don't worry, we have made a few available which will be for sale here in the Vaughn George Facebook group, and I will leave details in due course. We've also just finished a very, very unique event with Gareth Jones. Gareth took us through the multi-tracks of Construction Time again here in London at the Strong Room, and that was another night that I will never forget. So much positivity and great stuff happening right here on the Vaughn George community, the Vaughn George YouTube channel. If you've not joined the Facebook group, click on the link in the description below. And if you want even more in-depth content, then do please consider joining my members-only site, which is watchvg.com, where you can take my content to the next level and a lot deeper. I always appreciate your support. Please leave your comments below. Let me know which show you're going to, which shows you've been to, and anything you want to say about this amazing band, which is the institution of Depeche Mode. I wish you lots of love, my friend, and I'll see you on the next video or live event. Adios.